Hello everybody, it's June 11th, 2025, and after a long drive across the southwestern desert the day prior, we found ourselves in Santa Fe, New Mexico on a beautiful summer morning. Today, we would be exploring one of the most historic and scenically beautiful rail lines in the country, a stretch of track where time has paused in the last century. Built in the late 1800s by the Santa Fe Railroad as part of their main route between Chicago and Los Angeles, the BNSF Glorieta and Raton Subdivisions are unique on the Class 1 railroad system. The former route of the Santa Fe's most famous passenger trains, including the Super Chief and the El Capitan, the only regularly scheduled traffic that these subdivisions see in 2025 is Amtrak's Southwest Chief. This has been the current traffic pattern in this region for years, and as a result, with no freight moving over these lines, there has been very little incentive for BNSF to upgrade them to 21st century standards, meaning artifacts of the old Santa Fe, including the last sets of in-service mainline semaphore signals in the country, line this stretch of track between La Junta, Colorado, and just outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Today, our focus area will be centered around the town of Las Vegas, New Mexico, with the scenic Glorieta sub to the south and the semaphores of the Raton sub to the north, following both Amtrak trains as they traverse these historic rails. With a population of just over 13,000 and much smaller than its famous cousin in Nevada, Las Vegas, New Mexico is a poster child Old West town with artifacts of times past all around. Located at the division point between the Glorieta and Raton subdivisions, the Santa Fe heritage of the town is immediately evident when entering with a classic red and yellow caboose proudly on display. The downtown is lined with old buildings dating back to the 19th century, including the 1881 Plaza Hotel, which was featured in the massive 2007 movie No Country for Old Men. Down by the tracks, the classic Santa Fe-built station is still in service for the Southwest Chief every day. It was now, however, about time to cut the sightseeing short as the westbound Chief out of Chicago was approaching town, running about an hour late out of Colorado this morning. With 2 Genesis locomotives, a baggage car, and 8 superliners, this would be our train of focus for the next couple of hours. We would be back to Las Vegas later, so for now we used the Chief's station stop to get back ahead of the train just south of town as it began to enter the mountainous region of Glorieta Pass. Climbing to an elevation of 7,500 feet above sea level, Glorieta Pass plays host to grades approaching 2% for westbound trains and over 3% for eastbound trains. More on the grades later, but for now, number 3 is back on the move towards Albuquerque and beyond. As soon as number 3 cleared, the chase was on again. We'd make it another 18 track miles, driving first on the highway, then transitioning onto dirt-back roads to the west end of the siding at Blanchard, home to 3 classic Santa Fe searchlight signals still getting the job done in 2025. While the century-old semaphores along Glorieta Pass were removed a few years ago, there are still plenty of these old searchlight signals out and about. Note the jointed rail still in use at Blanchard, another prehistoric feature of this ancient main line. Ilfeld is our next spot to get ahead of the train, where 2 more searchlights stand guard. The classic tech in these automatic intermediate signals tell crews about the condition of the track blocks immediately ahead of them. The train is currently 1 block away, which is why this signal is giving an approach indication. Once the train enters the block that this signal governs, it will drop to red, and after a few minutes of taking in the scenery, that's exactly what it does. Back on the road again, our next stop is Guy's, as the 2 Genesis engines continue their uphill battle with gravity to the summit of the pass at Glorieta. So, why does a stretch of track owned by a Class 1 freight railroad see virtually no traffic from its owners? The answer to that question dates back to over a century ago, when this line was the primary route of the Santa Fe between Chicago and Los Angeles. One of America's premier railroads, Santa Fe's Mainline had a problem, and it stemmed from this trackage right here. The 3% grades on Glorieta Pass and Raton Pass, 150 miles to the north, provided a major obstacle for heavy freight trains, inhibiting Santa Fe's ability to run them efficiently. The solution? The Bell End Cutoff. Completed in 1908, this track realignment shifted the primary route of Santa Fe's Southern Transcon from Colorado south into Texas, rejoining the original alignment southwest of Albuquerque. With much more favorable grades, this provided a much more attractive routing for freight traffic, leading to its demise over the original alignment. What remained were Santa Fe's premier passenger trains, which in 1971 were folded into Amtrak, who operates the Southwest Chief to this day. Although, this operation has not come without its own hiccups, stemming from the unique situation this territory finds itself in. But more on that in a minute, as Amtrak number 3 is now coming through West Row on jointed rail, passing more searchlight signals. This would be our last shot on number 3 for the day, as they took the siding at Fox, just 4 miles ahead, to meet their eastbound counterpart, number 4. When you look at this dated stretch of track, you may ask yourself why Amtrak does not simply reroute the Chief via the Bell End Cutoff over the high-speed, double-tracked Southern Transcon. BNSF would certainly support this, as it would no longer have to spend any money at all to maintain the original route. To answer this, one must remember that Amtrak's long-distance trains function as an essential service, and state officials in Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico advocate heavily for the communities served by the Chief along its current routing. This makes any route change incredibly difficult to achieve, but in the late 2010s, Amtrak made this threat over a positive train control dispute. With no plans for BNSF to install PTC over this line since none of their own trains used it, Amtrak claimed that they would no longer run the Chief over this trackage under these conditions. This was eventually resolved as there was strong political support expressed for Amtrak's continuation of the route as is, but offers a window into the unique nature of running Amtrak trains over a host railroad that is legally required to keep them running even with no traffic of their own. Now that we've covered these logistics and politics, here comes train number 4 bound for Chicago. We wasted no time getting back on the chase, our first stop being back at Guy's, where we utilized the drone for the first time today. The scenic backdrop, slow speeds, and relatively close proximity to the I-25 frontage road makes pacing trains over Glorieta Pass easy and impressive. A fun minor detail that you don't see very often, the lead P42DC on today's Eastbound Chief is Amtrak number 4, the same number as the train that it is pulling. After shooting along the frontage road, we made our way back to Blanchard for one more shot on Glorieta Pass. We arrived well before the train, allowing us some time to really examine the classic searchlight signals still standing guard here at the west end of the siding. After a bit of waiting, number 4 came into view with the signals and New Mexico hills providing a stunning backdrop and making for one of my personal favorite shots of the day. Leaving the mountainous terrain behind, we were now headed for some more open land. Las Vegas was the first stop where we had started our morning, as Amtrak number 4 was due to make its station stop here in just a few minutes. Though plagued by unfavorable lighting due to a thunderstorm just off to our west, the old Santa Fe station still provided an incredible backdrop for number 4 arriving in town. The Superliners stopped at a classic Santa Fe station was some true Americana, but we did not stay long in Las Vegas as the coolest part of the day and the entire reason for coming out here was still ahead of us. Leaving town, we booked it 45 miles north on I-25 through beautiful wide-open grass fields before arriving in Wagon Mound, New Mexico, home to one of the most significant pieces of history that is still active on a railroad today. The living history at Wagon Mound is these: the last active semaphore signals on a mainline in the United States. This set at the east end of the siding, along with 3 other sets on a 15-mile stretch of the Raton sub, are the final examples of one of the first types of signaling systems used on the railroad dating back to the 19th century. These particular devices are USNS T2 models and from what I can find have been on the job for over a century. The concept of semaphores is quite simple. Vertical means clear, proceed at maximum authorized speed. A 45-degree angle means proceed with caution, and horizontal means stop. 2 of the 3 other semaphore sets are the 2 signals immediately east of Wagon Mound, one being an intermediate at milepost 722, which is seen here, and the other being at West Siding Switch Levee, which is where we will set up for Amtrak number 4 this evening. The final remaining semaphore is located at the east siding switch Colmer, another 10 miles away at milepost 709, which is the only semaphore that we did not photograph today. A neat thing about semaphores is that they are mechanically interlocked together. Watch in this scene. The signal for the main line has already dropped to approach. As Amtrak number 4 approaches from the west, entering a closer signal block, the semaphore head for westward movements drops to red, indicating the block ahead is occupied. So simple and old school, but still working just fine in 2025. The big moment soon arrives as Amtrak number 4 approaches, preparing to knock down the century-old semaphore. By the way, if anyone ever wondered where that term knocking down a signal comes from, look no further than right here. The show's not over just yet. After the train clears, each semaphore mechanically returns to its neutral position. First, immediately after the train passes, the signal for the siding resets. Next, after the train has cleared the signal at the east end of levee, the semaphore governing eastbound movements improves to an approach, indicating the block immediately ahead is clear. Finally, with the train now 2 blocks away, the eastbound signal improves to a clear, indicating that there is no obstruction on the track for the next 4 miles. Simultaneously, the westbound signal, which has been indicating a stop since the train's approach, was triggered to return to its neutral clear position. Having now captured the history that we set out to document, it was time to head north for Colorado. But that didn't stop us from a couple more run-ins with number 4 along the way. We caught up with the chief at Maxwell and after a quick pacing shot managed to pull over and get them flying over a stretch of jointed rail and past yet another searchlight signal. With a thunderstorm looming ahead, there was one more stretch of track parallel to the highway to catch back up to the chief. The scene that unfolded was one that I will not soon forget. A train of superliners cutting through miles of grassy plains, the foothills of the southern Rocky Mountains in the distance, and towering thunderclouds above made for a classic American West scene that felt out of a movie, made only better by the lightning bolt striking in the distance above the Genesis locomotives. It was a wonderful way to end this incredible day exploring the living history of the Santa Fe in New Mexico.